Hi, third grade. We are back with the second half of our anthology text, Earth. Last we met, we were reading a lot about what makes Earth special. Let's continue reading and seeing what else we can learn about Earth and our solar system.
Each planet follows its own path around the sun. The path is called an orbit. The orbits are a little bit elliptical. Elliptical. That means they are oval-shaped paths. Earth takes a little more than 365 days to orbit the sun. One trip around the sun equals 1 year. Planets also rotate as they travel. They spin around like a top. Each planet rotates around its axis. An axis is an imaginary line that runs through the center of the planet from top to bottom. Earth's axis is tilted, so Earth leans to one side as it spins. It rotates all the way around in 24 hours. That's exactly 1 day. Earth's orbit around the sun. Earth. Average of 93 million miles, 150 million kilometers. Sun. Mercury's orbit. Venus's orbit. Earth's orbit. Mars's orbit. This diagram shows the paths of the rocky planets around the sun. Earth's rotation, direction of spin, axis. Earth is tilted on its axis as it rotates. It takes 24 hours to complete one rotation.
Listen to these 3 details from paragraph 2. It says, planets rotate as they travel. Then it says, planets rotate around an axis, which is an imaginary line running through the center vertically. Then it says Earth rotates all the way around its tilted axis in 24 hours. What do all of these details have in common? All of these details are about the way planets rotate as they travel. Using these details, what do you think the main idea of this section is? The main idea is that planets rotate on their axis as they travel.
Earth's closest neighbor. Everyone knows about Earth's closest neighbor. We see it in the sky almost every night. It is the moon. The moon is much smaller than Earth. It is about 2,160 miles, 3,475 kilometers wide. About 50 moons would fit inside Earth. Our moon orbits Earth, just as Earth orbits the sun. The moon takes about 27 days to travel around Earth. Like our planet, the moon also rotates, but it rotates much more slowly than Earth. The moon takes a little more than 27 days to turn all the way around. Since it travels around Earth in the same amount of time, the same side of the moon always faces us. The moon looks small when shown side by side with Earth. It is actually much farther from Earth than shown here.
In this section, there is information about our closest neighbor, which is the moon. How can we remember the most important ideas? I can summarize what I have read about the moon. The moon is much smaller than Earth. It orbits Earth just like Earth orbits the sun. It rotates too, but the same side always faces us.
From night to night, the moon seems to change shape. Sometimes we can see the full moon. Other times it looks as if it has been cut in half. The moon's shape seems to change just a little each night. Over about 1 month, it grows into a full moon and then gets smaller and disappears again. Phases of the moon over 28 days. The moon seems to grow bigger until half of its round shape shows, top row left to right. This is called the moon's first quarter. It grows larger until we see the full moon. The full moon shines for a night or two. Then it looks smaller bit by bit until we see the last quarter, third row from top. Finally, the crescent disappears into a new moon.
So, in this section, it talks about how the moon can look different over the course of a month, the 28 days. The text uses words like seems to grow. Notice how the author is using the word seems. It's very important that the author uses this word, seems, because the moon really isn't growing or shrinking. It's actually just how we're able to see it. We can see portions or parts of the moon at different times. So, how much of the moon we're able to see on certain days of the month. Again, it seems like the moon is growing and shrinking, but it really isn't growing and shrinking.
We see only the parts of the moon that are lit by the sun. As the moon travels around Earth, sunlight hits the moon from different directions. When it hits the side of the moon facing Earth, we see a full moon. If it mostly lights the side facing away from Earth, we see only a sliver.
When we summarize, we retell the most important information. How would you summarize this section? I would summarize by saying, the sunlight hits the moon as it travels around Earth. The moon we see is the part lit by the sun.
The moon may not seem far away, but it is very far. Our moon is 238,855 miles, 384,400 kilometers from Earth. Imagine you could drive from Earth to the moon in a car going 50 miles, 80 kilometers per hour. It would take nearly 200 days of non-stop driving to get there. The moon is closer to Earth than any planets are, but it is still very far away.
Here we have a stop and check question. Why does the moon seem to change shape? The moon seems to change shape because sunlight hits it from different directions. When it hits the side facing Earth, we see a full moon. When it hits the side facing away, we only see a sliver of the moon. So the moon looks different to us depending on where the sun is shining on it.
Once you reached the moon, what would you see? The moon's surface is mostly gray rocks and dirt. You would see some mountains and many deep valleys. You would also see many craters. Craters. Craters are bowl-shaped pits in the surface. Some craters are just a few miles wide. The largest ones are more than 1,000 miles wide, 1,610 kilometers. Craters are formed when rocks or ice from space slam into the moon's surface. These objects are called meteorites. Meteorites and comets. Comets. The moon's surface has craters of many different sizes. These craters are on the side of the moon that faces away from Earth. This image shows the gray surface of the moon. The dark patches are areas filled with lava rock. This is the side of the moon we see from Earth.
The main idea of this section is the moon's surface has many different shapes, including mountains, valleys, and craters. Which details support this main idea? The details are the moon's surface is mostly gray rocks and dirt. The moon has mountains and deep valleys. And the moon has many craters. The thing that all of these details have in common are that they describe the surface of the moon.
What else would you notice? There is no life on the moon. The moon has almost no atmosphere, so there is no air to breathe. Without an atmosphere, nothing protects the moon from the sun's heat. Nothing holds in any of the sun's warmth either, so the moon gets very hot and very cold. Sunny parts of the moon get as hot as 253 degrees Fahrenheit, 123 degrees Celsius. Other places get as cold as minus 387 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 233 degrees Celsius. Look up at the night sky. Can you see the moon, our nearest neighbor in space? The sun and the planets are out there too, even if you can't see them now. Look down at the ground. That's Earth, our home planet. We are all part of the solar system. The moon is seen through a thin layer of Earth's atmosphere. The moon has no atmosphere of its own.
The author does a really good job of using text features to help explain their information that they're teaching us. The author provides all of these photographs that reinforce the information in the text. For example, this photo shows a close up of the moon's surface, and it shows these large craters and that it has many areas of lava rocks. And down here, we see a photograph of the moon near the thin layer of Earth's atmosphere, and it explains that the moon has no atmosphere of its own. At the beginning of this expository text, we had an essential question. The question was, how can we learn more about Earth and its neighbors? By reading this expository text, we have learned that Earth is the fifth largest planet and the only planet that has living things. 7 other planets also orbit the Sun in our solar system. The gas giants are bigger than Earth and further from the Sun. The rocky planets are closer to the Sun. The Moon orbits Earth just as Earth orbits the Sun. Wow, we have learned so much just from this one expository text. Isn't that amazing? All right, boys and girls, that's all for our expository text, Earth. I hope you have enjoyed learning about Earth and our solar system. Thanks for learning with me. Bye for now.